Welcome to Vacuum Wars, and to our review of the Mova S10 robot vacuum. We recently named it our favorite robot vacuum in its price range. It's currently selling for under $200 in a world where top-of-the-line robot vacuums typically sell for $1,500 or more. And I think part of the story here is how far budget robot vacuums like the S10 have come in recent years. For most of the history of Vacuum Wars, the Roomba 600 series was the uncontested champion of the budget tier in our opinion. But in just a few short years, for roughly the same amount of money, you can now get a much better experience. So in this video, while reviewing the Mova S10, I'll be comparing it along the way to the Roomba 600 series so that you can see for yourself just how much more the consumer is getting for their money these days. So links in the description, and let's get started. First, the basics. The Mova S10 is a robot vacuum mop combo. There is a version that comes with an auto-empty dock called the S10 Plus, which we've also reviewed and is a bit more rare, but for this video, I'm focusing on the package that only includes the robot and standard charger, the Mova S10 without the Plus. One of the most obvious places to start is navigation. The Mova S10 has smart navigation, where the Roomba 600 series and pretty much every robot vacuum in this price range until recently does not. The S10 has a top-mounted LiDAR sensor, which allows it to map your floor plan and navigate in straight, efficient rows. It knows where it has and hasn't been, and it's overall one of the biggest changes we've seen from the early versions to modern robot vacuums. The Roomba 600 series, by contrast, is what I call a random navigation robot vacuum. It basically bounces around until its battery runs low, and then it returns to its dock. It does surprisingly well at covering the floor plan, but you can't guarantee it will get to every room every time, and it's not a very reliable system overall. Also, because it doesn't make a map, you also don't get most of the important app features that we'll talk about later with the S10. Another huge difference between these two robots is that the Mova S10 has a mop. It has a single vibrating mop pad, which they call Vibro Turbo, exerting 3.5 newtons of downward pressure. It includes features like Robo Swing, electronically dispensed water that you can control in the app, and one of the more interesting things, it can lift up its mop pad 7 millimeters when it senses carpets. This keeps carpets dry, and it's something that I think is a critical feature because it means that you can vacuum and mop floor plans with a mixture of hard floors and carpets in the same run. This set of mopping features is usually what you would see on robots in the $600 to $1,000 price range. It was also pretty good in our mopping tests. It was slightly above average in the stain test, below average in water usage, which is good, and its combined mopping performance score was significantly above average. All of this is amazing considering its price. And as a reminder, the Roomba 600 series and most robots in this price range don't even have mops. Yet another feature that's almost unheard of at this price is front-mounted obstacle avoidance. Basically, these are additional sensors in the front of the robot that can recognize and avoid household objects that it would otherwise get stuck on. In this case, the S10 has 3D structured light sensors in front, and of course the Roomba does not have any such sensors. However, this is one area where the S10 significantly underperformed compared to more expensive vacuums that have obstacle avoidance. In our tests, it only avoided 4 out of a possible 24 objects, where the average is 17. That said, with the S10, you can create virtual barriers in the app to keep the robot out of problem areas, something you could never do with the Roomba, which doesn't map at all. When it comes to actual vacuuming performance, these two robots are a little more equal, but the S10 still pulls ahead in most respects. For example, the Mova S10 had significantly more airflow at 20 CFM and more suction than the Roomba, but in terms of picking up debris from the surfaces of hard floors and carpets, they were both very good. The Mova uses a single side brush and a single rubberized main brush. The Roomba uses a side brush and a dual brush roll, one of which has old-style bristles, one of the few robot vacuums still using that type of brush, and it did hurt the Roomba's performance with hair tangles. In our 7-inch hair tangle test, the Mova had a respectable score with only 28% of the hair getting caught in its roller, slightly above average, but the Roomba had almost 100% of the 7-inch hair caught in its rollers, the worst score ever. However, both of them were really good with some of the more advanced deep cleaning tests. For example, in our 2.5-inch flattened pet hair test on carpet, the Roomba actually did slightly better than the S10, though both were above average. And the Roomba also traditionally does very well with the carpet deep clean test that we do, but surprisingly the S10 actually did better, getting one of the higher scores on record. So in terms of sweeping ability and deep cleaning, both were great, but the S10, all things considered, performed like a much more expensive robot vacuum. We also measure battery life and navigation efficiency, and it's no surprise that the Mova S10 absolutely crushed the Roomba 600 series in navigation efficiency. The S10 has LiDAR and navigates in a highly efficient pattern compared to the Roomba, which is for all intents and purposes random. My one concern with the S10 or any product in the budget price range is quality control issues. By this I mean, does the product break down over time? Are there going to be unforeseen issues or problems that show up shortly after ownership? We monitor this by watching different metrics on Amazon, most notably the Amazon 1-star review percentage, which tends to be a pretty good signal that something is wrong with a product, and the S10 is generally doing pretty well there, and has been for some time. So the bottom line is that the world has changed. Budget robot vacuums are now actually pretty good. If you haven't been in the robot vacuum market since the early days, if all you know are robots that bounce around randomly and don't mop, you should try the Mova S10 and see if you like the idea. It's a great entry point into the modern robot vacuum world without breaking the budget. As far as the rankings on the Vacuum Wars Top 20 list on our website, which we update weekly, unfortunately neither of these robots quite made the cut. In our overall rankings, the S10 sits somewhere around 51st overall, by far the highest ranking robot in its price range. By contrast, the Roomba 694, which is the highest ranking Roomba in the 600 series, is ranking 110th. So a pretty big difference. Links in the description to the Vacuum Wars Top 20 list and the Mova S10 on Amazon, and thanks for watching. All of the links in the description are updated regularly to reflect our current favorite vacuums in multiple categories. You'll also find links to the Vacuum Wars website in the description, where we have more detailed lists of our favorite products, like our new Top 20 robot vacuums list, which is updated weekly.